Good morning everybody. In this video, I discuss about the effect of finite nuclear mass on the atomic spectra. So before going to the derivation, I would like to give some introduction to the atomic model. The very first atomic model is proposed by Thomson, known as Thomson's atomic model. He assumed that the atom is consisting of the positively charged fluid and it is spreading over the entire region of the atom, and the negatively charged electrons are immersed here and there. So based on this model, he could not give the explanation for the atomic spectra. Then the atomic model was proposed by Rutherford after his experiment of alpha scattering with a gold foil. So when the Rutherford is doing an experiment with the alpha scattering with gold foil, he noticed that most of the alpha particles are penetrating without any deviation. But some of the alpha particles are deviated with the smaller angles and some with the larger angles, and even he noticed that some of the alpha particles are rebounding back along the incident direction. So he proposed an atomic model assuming that the entire positive mass is concentrated at the center of the atom called as nucleus, and electrons may be revolving around the nucleus. So this assumption he makes on the consideration that as most of the space is empty, that's why the alpha particles are penetrating without any deviation. Whenever the alpha particles which are coming close to the vicinity of the nucleus, they are deviating with the smaller angles. When the alpha particles are coming very close to the nucleus, they are deviating with the larger angles due to force of repulsion, because alpha particles are also positively in nature and the nucleus is having a positively charged here. Whenever the alpha particle undergoes a head-on collision with the nucleus, they are rebounding back into the direction of incidence. Okay, so he proposed the atomic model as the nucleus is at the center and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus. Even his theory fails to give the explanation of atomic spectra, because he has considered that the electrons are revolving around the nucleus and the moving electrons always emits a radiation. So we can say that electromagnetic radiations are emitted. So once they are in a continuous motion, the electrons must lose its energy while radiating the radiation here. As they lose energy here, they may move or they may spiral very close to the nucleus. After some instant of time, they may collapse into the, after losing entire energy, the electrons may collapse into the nucleus. So if the electrons collapse into the nucleus, automatically the atoms has to be vanished here. But we know that atoms are stable. So his theory also met a failure. He could not give the explanation for the atomic spectra. Later, Bohr will introduce a atomic model more known as Bohr's atomic model. He made a consideration almost same as the Rutherford, making a smaller correction to the Rutherford atom model, and he tries to give the explanation for the atomic spectra on the quantum mechanical considerations. So according to Bohr's atomic model, he assumed that the entire positively charged particles are concentrated at the center of the atom known as nucleus, and it consists of protons and neutrons. The negatively charged electrons are revolving around the nucleus. The difference between the Rutherford assumption and Bohr assumptions are all the electrons are not revolving in the same orbit. The electrons can revolve in the orbit in only the permissible orbits for which the angular momentum of the electron must be equal to integral multiple of h cross. That is, if L is the angular momentum of the electron, then L must be equal to nh cross or nh by 2 pi, as h cross is h by 2 pi. Only the electrons can move in those orbits for which L must be equal to nh cross. Okay, so this is the first modification made by the Bohr to the Rutherford model. The another modification he makes is, in Rutherford model, the electrons revolving around the nucleus continuously emitting a radiation. But he makes a correction to that one, that as long as the electrons are in its orbit, they are non-radiating. Then when they are going to emit a radiation, because we are observing a spectrum here, when they are emitting a radiation. So according to Bohr, he says that the radiation is emitted only when the electrons are jumping from higher energy state to the lower energy state. So this is the model proposed by the Bohr. That means he considered that the nucleus is situated exactly at the center of the atom, and the electrons are revolving in a different orbits, and they can revolve in only those orbits for which the angular momentum of the electrons must be equal to integral multiple of h cross, and the electrons are radiating energy only when they jump from higher energy state to the lower energy state. Based on his atomic model, he successfully explains the atomic spectra. So for his experiment, he has taken a hydrogen atom and he explained successfully the observed spectra. And the spectra was consisting of, as we have studied in the lower classes, it is consisting of Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen, Brackett and a Pfund series. Whenever electron jumps from all other orbits to the first orbit, they give rise to a spectral series of Lyman, and it is named as Lyman series. And similarly, for Balmer, the electron must jump from any other orbit to the second orbit, give rise to a Balmer series, so on and so forth. So in this way, he successfully explained the atomic spectra of hydrogen atom, and also he derives the expression for energy of the electron in different orbits and the radius of the orbit, and also the frequency, expression for frequency emitted by the radiation. I have listed those in the next slide, that is expression for energy, and these two are the postulates of Bohr's theory, and this is the expression for energy, expression for radius of the different orbit electrons, and this is the expression for frequency of the radiation emitted by the electrons when they are crossing from higher state to the lower state. Why I am taking this? Because in all these derivations, he has considered that only the mass of the electron, taking into account that only the electron is in motion, so he has considered the mass of the electron, and the nucleus, he has assumed it is fixed at the center without any motion. So today's derivation, what we are going to consider here is, if the nuclear mass is considerable, if it is not infinite mass, even the nucleus also has a motion similar to the electron revolving around the nucleus. So if you consider the nuclear motion also, then these expressions are going to alter by a small quantity here that we are going to derive in today's derivation. So let us consider, for that let us consider a nucleus of mass capital M and electron of mass small m, and both nucleus and electrons are revolving about a same common point or a same center, about the center of mass here. So this point, let me consider it as a center of mass here, and the nucleus is revolving about this center of mass with the radius r1. Similarly, the electron is also moving about the same center of mass with the radius r2. So this more clearly is taken here. Okay, the nucleus is revolving about the center of mass. Similarly, the electron is also revolving about the same center of mass with the radius r2, let the total distance, that is R1 plus R2, is considered as R here. Then according to the theory of center of mass, we can write capital M into R1, where M is the nuclear mass and small m is the electron mass, M into R2, whose radius here. Okay, equating these two, we can write it as, according to the center of mass theory, it is capital M R1 is equal to small m R2. Since R is equal to R1 plus R2, okay, so now I can either substitute the value of R2 or R1, making use of this relation. So in this expression, I am substituting the value of R2, making use this equation as capital M into R1 by small m here. So this equation reduces to R is equal to R1 plus MR. Now taking R1 as common, we'll get this expression, and taking a LCM, we'll get this as R1 into small m plus capital M divided by M. Therefore, I will get the value of R1 here. That is, R1 can be written as small m into R divided by M plus M. Similarly, proceeding in the same type of calculation, I can even get the value of R2 as capital M. That means we have to do the similar type of, instead of substituting the value of R2, if we substitute the value of R1 as small m R2 by capital M and proceeding in the same manner, we will get the expression for R2 as this one. Okay. Now, we'll take a total angular momentum of the atom about the center of mass. In the Bohr's theory, has considered only the electron motion. So, he has taken into consideration L is equal to only the electron mass. So, in all his calculation, he has taken into mass of the electron itself. As both are in motion, now to calculate the total angular momentum of the atom, we have to take a sum of the angular momentum of the nucleus as well as the angular momentum of the electron here. I hope you know why we have written an angular momentum expression as this one. The expression for linear momentum is simply m into v, whereas the expression for angular momentum, it is a r cross p, we say, that is the linear momentum into the radius vector. And we know that the relation between linear velocity to angular velocity is v is equal to r omega. Therefore, writing r omega in this place will get the expression for angular momentum as mr square omega, as this is the angular momentum of nucleus, substitute it as r1, and angular momentum of electron, substituting it as r2, will get this one. Substituting the values of R1 and R2 in this equation using these two, we'll get the expression like this. Okay. In place of R1 square, you replace it with this value with a square. Similarly, in place of R2, you substitute this one. Now you see in this equation, capital M is common in both the quantities. Small m is also common. Okay. R square is common. Okay. And omega is common. Similarly, in the denominator, m plus m whole square is also common. Taking all those common factors out of the bracket, we'll get the expression as this one. Okay. Cancel this m plus m with this one, leaving behind this. Now, replacing this with the quantity mu here, and this is known as reduced mass of the electron. Okay. Now, this angular momentum is just similar to the what the Bohr has considered. Without the motion of nucleus, he'll get his first postulate as angular momentum must be equal to integral multiple of h cross or h by 2 pi. So, if the nuclear motion is considered, instead of the electron mass, we will get it includes both the masses in this fashion, that is mm by m plus m. So, we can write it as mu here. This is the expression for angular momentum due to the both nuclear motion as well as electron motion. This is simply the electron motion. So, replacing in all the expressions obtained by the Bohr, m by mu, we will get a new expression. So, this is the effect of nuclear motion on the atomic spectra. The expression for the frequency emitted by the atoms is changes with the mu here. Wherever m is there, that has to be replaced with the mu, and the rest of the thing is going to remain same. While doing a calculation, it alters the calculation slightly by a factor m by m plus m. So this is the final expression, that is the effect of nuclear mass on the atomic spectra. So this is all about the explanation, today's explanation. Okay, and I have dropped the notes of this explanation in a description. Those who are interested, you can see the notes also for this explanation. Thank you.